Hello, everyone. Welcome to the session of the Active DMPs Interest Group. Today, we want to discuss with you about the future developments in the area of DMPs. We have prepared an interactive agenda for you today. Our session consists of 3 parts. We would like to start with a short introduction to get to know your background, who you are and why you're here. And we're also going to give you some updates from our working group, because as some of you may remember, this interest group has been going on for quite some time. I think it's one of the oldest interest groups at RDA. And in the meantime, we have triggered some working groups to work on specific aspects like machine actionable DMPs or doing some surveys. And because we have only one session about DMPs during this plenary, we are also trying to bring some updates from all those groups. And this is what you will hear in the first part. And we will also hear updates from different tool owners from around the world in these lightning talks that we have in the first part. So we'll hear about developments regarding DMPs in Asia, Europe, America, UK. So I think this will be really interesting for everyone who's here. But because we also want to hear from you a bit more, we have the second part in which we want to work in groups with you. We want to discuss how you see data management plans in 2030. So it's not so far in the future, but we still have a little bit of time to discuss what we can achieve together and how this group can contribute to new developments and potentially creating new working groups, or if there's any topic we want to work together. And in the last part, the first part, we'll be wrapping up and trying to agree on the specific next steps. What do we do before the next plenary and what the next session should focus on. If you want to participate in the collaborative notes, there is a QR code at the bottom of the slide. So please scan the QR code and then add your notes at any information you would like to share with us. I can see some people scanning the code. And before we jump into the updates about from the DMP Common Standards Working Group, I would like to ask you 3 questions. And for this purpose, I'm going to use Menti. I will display you the code, which is here. So please now scan another code. And here we will have 3 quick questions for you. So I can see you're still scanning. Okay, I can see we have 18 people, 20 people, 21 people already inside. So let's go to the first quite easy question. What part of the world are you from? So we've got Europe, US, UK, Malta, Canada, Greece, Japan, Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, Japan, China, Groningen, Graz, Asia. Okay. Do we have anyone from the US? Okay. You know, there is so much light in my face, I can barely see anything here. We have 57 responses. This room looks half empty, but we have 57 responses. So it's actually quite many people in the room. Okay, let's go to the next question. Which domain or research community do you belong to? And here you have natural sciences, engineering and technology, medical and health sciences, agricultural and veterinary sciences, social sciences, humanities, other. Well, this is interesting. Seems like the other option is prevailing. What's the other? If someone can speak out loud. Okay. Okay, I see. then let's get to the next question, the last one. What type of research data management activity are you mostly involved in? So is it data management planning, or is it something else like data collection, processing, analysis, preservation, access, and of course, other? Okay, we have a mix of everything, but I think the one with the most answer is of course data management planning. So it means you're in the right session. Data reuse also closely connected. This is what DMPs are mostly about. Okay, good. So this is us. This is where we come from. This is what we do in our daily work. And now I would like to go to the second part of this, to the next item in the agenda, which is the update from the DMP working group. And I would like to invite Marek Suchanek to give us a few words.
Yeah, thank you, Tomasz, and good morning, everyone. So I will give you a brief update what has been done and what will be done by the DMP Common Standards Working Group, as I am one of the co-chairs. So during the summer and quite before the summer, I had this RDA open call project with improving sustainability and maintainability of the DMP Common Standard for machine actionable DMPs. So this was the previous state, how it worked. I talked about that in the previous plenary meeting. And what actually was done was prepared of this, some refactoring of the specification itself using something that I called meta specification that basically allows to automatically check the machine actionable DMP specification in some controlled way. Maybe you could ask why meta specification if we want to use some nice words similar to metadata, meta schemas, etc. But it's some kind of meta model or model for the specification itself. So we can put the specification in some form, validate it, generate some artifacts based on templates. And those could be also like the JSON schema that you maybe know, OWL ontology that is something that was discussed many times, the documentation of the standard for specific versions of the standard, etc. It also enables the automatic check for consistency and compliance. And this also involves possibility to support other specifications. So based on the meta specification, other groups can basically create their own specification or also create extensions. That was something also mentioned by the group several times during the years, and this will bring the way how to proceed with the extensions of the standard. So what next? Of course, this was done in the project, and now we will be working on the transition phase. So we will be having a meeting with key stakeholders to discuss how to transit from the actual state, or from what that you know, to the new one. But no worries, it will still be the same specifications, still the same entities, attributes, everything, just the form, how it's encoded will change. So the form will be also machine actionable and bring these benefits for example, for the extensions. Then we might also do some updates in the specification itself, but it will be next step, for example, releasing 1.2 or 2.0. That's something to be discussed then later with the community. Also, one of the things that will be released is the documentation of the specification and also meta specification, so others can use it and reuse it. And finally, what was also prepared in the project is community website for sharing the knowledge and experience. That's something inspired, for example, by RDM kit, if you know, or similar pages. So community can contribute, create pages with their own user stories, experience, and share that. So if you are interested and want to know more, this is just a brief flash talk, but actually we had the poster. We did not get the session for the working group, but we had at least the poster number 20. So during this evening, you can come and check the post and talk to me. Of course, I will be there also during the coffee breaks. So thank you. And now, if I may ask Ellie to continue with the presentation. Thanks.
I'm perfectly on time. Thank you, Marek. Hi, everyone. I am Ellie Papadopoulou. I work for Athena Research Center in Greece, and I'm the co-chair of the Active Data Management Planning Interest Group. Well, now, having heard about the updates of the DMP Common Standard, we are going to have a session of lightning talks. We have invited few colleagues from across regions of the world to see what they're doing in terms of data management planning. And we have representatives from Asia, US, Europe, and UK. So let's start. I will keep I don't want to keep talking more. Let's start and from the Institute of Informatics in Japan. We have with us oh yes, sorry. Hi, you can come. Yeah. So we have with us Toshiyuki Hiraki.
Okay, thank you for all your. So, great to see you all. I'm Toshiyuki Hiraki, shortly Toshi, a researcher from National Institute of Informatics in Japan. Today, I will show our work, our current work on the data governance functions of the NII research data cloud. Oh, okay. So this slide shows the overview of our current functions, which is under under development currently. So currently in Japan, more and more funding agencies request researchers DMPs. In the current situation in Japan, these DMPs are ending up with just documentation for funding, not beneficial for researchers. So this leads to the compliance from researchers, such as this is just additional work to do. What should I submit? And what to be evaluated in the DB? Oh no. To make DB creation beneficial for researchers who are engaged in the research data management, our current data governance functions aim to orchestrate the research data environments and monitoring of the RDA messages. So one of the key points of our research data governance function is the machine actionability of DMPs. So of course, we are paying attention to international trends in machine actionable DMPs while we are advancing its development at NII. So based on the current, our experience of research activities and hearing from researchers, we have two possible use cases. One is to practice research data management along DMPs. If a DMP covers enough information about research data activity, research data management, then it will become to a milestone for research data management for researchers. So assume that we are developing we have been developing the research data flow, which is a set of actionable procedure documents based on DMPs. So these research flows can be modified and extended by researchers so that they pave their own RDM ways, and also use like electronic laboratory notebooks. Okay. So the other possible use case is to monitor the state of RDM along our DMPs. As you know, A DMP is a plan to manage research data obtained in the research activities for the corresponding research project. And also, a DMP is to be a living document updated according to the state of a research project. It will be burdensome, maybe, for researchers to check whether the current status of RDM satisfy the RDM requirements in DMPs, maybe in coming future. So we are developing a monitoring function which verifies whether the RDM status satisfies the requirements in the DMP. And the figure in this slide shows a process of our monitoring functions. First, our monitoring function extracts RDM requirements described in DMPs. Then the function packages a collection of metadata of research data. And then the function verifies according to the extracted RDM requirements and the packaged metadata so that whether the RDM status satisfies the requirements in the DMPs. And the monitoring function can be exceeded anytime the researcher will, and also can be executed in the research data flow, as I mentioned in the previous slide. And the lastly, I use hand on. So in the my last slide, I'll show an idea about our way, how our tools connect to the policies, especially research data policies formulated by institution. So in 2021, the Cabinet Office in Japan set a target that all Japanese universities with an institutional repository need to set up its own research data policies for their institutional data governances and as well as responsibility for their research data management, such as accountability of the research data. So in this case, we might support the check by adopting the concept of the monitoring function so that the institution as well as the researchers can check whether the RDM status complies with the institutional research data policies. The process of our function under conceptualization is shown in this figure, and this is similar to that of our monitoring functions. And the function extracts the RDM requirements described in research data policy formulated by the institution. And then the function packages the metadata of DMPs and as well as also research data. And then the functions verify whether the collection of metadata verify whether the RDM status satisfies the RDM requirements described in the research data policies by comparing the collection of metadata and the RDM requirements. So my talk is over. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. We will have a Q&A session after the talks, so please keep your questions. And next in the program, we have Chen Jin from the Computer Network Information Center of the Chinese Academy of Sciences.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Chen Chen from Computer Network Information Center. I think it's my honor to have this opportunity to share our recent work, which is called KISS-DMP. It's a DMP management platform which will help life cycle research data management. And before that, I want to give a quick introduction to KISS. Chinese Academy of Sciences is China's lead national scientific institution. There are more than 100 institutes and covering almost all the disciplines of natural science, technology, and some interdisciplinary fields. And the institutes are distributed across the country. They are in more than 20 provinces in China. And China's Academy of Sciences is also a big funder for the institutes. And there are more than maybe more than 30 large facilities and more than 100 observation stations in China's Academy of Sciences. So all these facilities, observation stations, and these institutes, they need the research data management. And there's a long history of data management in China's Academy of Sciences back to the 1980s. At first, the data are managed and curated just in the research team themselves. Since 200, we are focusing on how to build the databases or knowledge bases of some for some disciplinary problems. And in 2019, a new data policy is issued in China's Academy of Sciences. All the research data produced by the CAS-funded projects are required to archive and open their data. So we need a new platform to help them to manage DMP, to create DMP, and help them to manage the data. To end it, DMP is required to create at the very beginning of the start of a project. Before develop a platform for DMP, CAS started work about scientific data center. It created a system of scientific data centers comprising institutional centers, disciplinary centers, and the general data center. They have their specific roles in data archiving, processing, sharing, and publishing. They provide the basis for the DMP work. And now I will talk about the CAS DMP. It's a platform to help the researchers to plan their data management and manage their data, track the progress, and validate how it has been accomplished. And there are many stakeholders with this platform. There's the researchers from project, and we need ask every project to have their main specialist or manager to help the researchers to create DMP or help them to track the progress, and all the data are published by the researchers themselves. And so they can show their own internal properties or some other things. And then the project manager will help the researchers follow up the progress of the DMP. And there are also some specialists from scientific data center. They help the researchers to create their DMP, help them to archive their data. They provide not just the infrastructures or the environment for the researchers, they will also give some advices or some trainings for the researchers. And the founder will also have their information from this platform. They can keep informed of the status of all the data work of the projects, how they are going on. At first, we want to create a DMP. This is some screenshots of our platform. At first, they will list, this is on the top, there is an example of DMP. They will include some basic information of the projects, and the specialist or the manager or the researchers involved in this project, and they will create we call it indicators. The indicators of the DMP, you can choose what type of output you will produce. Not just the data sets, you can also create some indicators about papers or patents or some other things. And according to the different type of the output, the items will varies according to the types. And you can also choose which data centers you want to archive your data. We can give some information of the data centers, so they can choose the perfect one for them. And we are using the machine actionable DMP standards, but we make a little modification to the original version. At first, the DMP includes some different data sets, but we separate it apart. We call it indicator meter. Maybe it's not the perfect word for it, but it shows the data sets they planned to produce in the DMP. It's what they planned, and then the data sets refer to the data sets they actually published in during their projects. So we can map the indicators with the data sets to follow up or track how the DMP is going on. And also the interoperability is very important to make this work. We designed the vocabulary with the terms from some generally used vocabularies, for example, DCAT or schema RD, and covering different types of outputs and giving some related informations include to the vocabulary. And we will, when we get we collect data set management from these data centers, we will check and inspect the items of the metadata. And to have a compliance with the data policies, we add some items to the metadata. For example, whether you have checked the sensitive data or some other things. And we also make the DM realize the machine actionable DMP in RDA format, and they are used the terms from the vocabulary and linked with the dataset metadata. And we also make them synchronized between the KSDMP platform and the data centers. Based on that, we can track how the data management work goes on, and whether they are compliant with the DMP and how whether they are fair, and to evaluate the fairness level. Also, we can give some other statistic diagrams or some graphs or some data to the founders. They are very pleased with that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting to see this presentation. Unfortunately, we don't have, I think, someone representing the US region, unless I don't see them. Yes, so we can move to the UK, and Kevin Ashley from Digital Curation Center can introduce us to the work they're doing with DMPs.
Thanks very much, Ellie. You asked us to address 3 questions in these lightning talks. It may not be apparent to everyone in the room, but Ellie asked us to explain each of the presenters here to talk about which community we're serving, how our work links with policies, and some specific examples of technical possibilities in the tool. So in some ways, the most difficult thing for me to explain is the community. So although the Digital Curation Center is based in the UK, I'm here talking about potentially about 2 things. A service that we run, the Digital Curation Center called DMP Online, that's actually used by organizations, by researchers around the world. So it's certainly not UK specific, although the UK is where we host the infrastructure that provides that. But DMP Online itself is based on an open source code base, as many of the other tools we're hearing about today are based. But that particular code base, DMP Roadmap, doesn't just support DMP Online, it's also behind national services that operate in Canada. It's operated there, it's called DMP Assistant. That's the service provided by the Alliance in Canada, and services being provided by national bodies in France, in Denmark, and I'm sure elsewhere as well. So sometimes I'm going to be speaking about the community that uses the service that we provide, DMP Online, and sometimes about that wider community that's involved with that open source code base. And apologies then for that slight confusion between the two communities we're talking about. But now let's just focus on that service that we provide. As I said, it's used by over 300 organizations. There's over 120,000 registered users of this. It's free to use to researchers, but organizations can buy a subscription to it that allows them to tailor the service to better support their researchers, to give them clearer ideas about what their organization can provide, and also perhaps to constrain, and I'll talk a little about this later, the workflows and how the DMPs are constructed to reflect what infrastructure that organization has to support the researchers in creating, maintaining, and preserving their data. So there's over 70 organizations, primarily in Europe, but also some in Australia and elsewhere, subscribing and paying us to operate that service for us. But it's always free to use for the researchers, although if their organization doesn't subscribe, what they see is a much more basic service, as it were. And this also causes me, I think it's a worry one always has with services like this, when you're thinking about what is the community here. And a colleague of mine often said it's useful to distinguish in English between our customers and our users. So the users primarily are the researchers who need to create the data management plans. They are the people who will interact with and create the service, and create the plans, but they're not the people subscribing to the service. They're not the people paying for it. So it's our customers who are primarily the organizations those researchers work in, or in some cases, those customers are national bodies or their funders. And we aim to provide something that satisfies the needs of both of those groups, that makes the researcher's job easier, but also satisfies the needs of the funders and the organizations they work in. Usually that's possible, but sometimes these things don't align. One of the things that I always worry about, any of you who work in a university will at times have, when you hear the news that, let's say, there's a new finance system being introduced or a new human resources system, and it gives you this cold feeling inside because you know that system is going to make the life of an administrator somewhere easier, and it's going to make your life more difficult. I speak as somebody who's just going through a new finance system at my university. I don't ever want our tool to be like that new finance system, but at times I have nightmares that maybe that's what we'll be. I hope we've avoided that. So the next question you asked us to look at, Ellie, was how do we connect to policies? And I think there's many ways in which any of our tools can do that. And there are multiple types of some things which are definitely policies and some things which perhaps are more like guidelines and best practice. They're perhaps not as formal as policies. But clearly there are policies operating at the institutional level. I think for almost every data management plan, there's going to be institutional level policy that's important. In some cases, policies that are a lower level, specific to the research group, the laboratory, the team that's creating this. There are going to be policies that apply from the funders, where we're talking about research that's being funded by some national or international body. And also, in many cases, there are nation-state level policies, or even transnational at levels like the European Commission, that are above the level of any particular funder that may apply to what a data management plan needs to cover. And then there's those ways of working that are established in particular domains that often they're not called policies, but they're ways of working, they're ways that your colleagues and your peers expect you to work. And I think they have the same force as a policy. And often I think that's where much of the work has been going on in RDA and elsewhere in attempting to decide how should data management planning work in a particular domain. So the way in which our tool, I think, and other tools can help connect to those policies is where policies say there are certain things we must know, then we can ensure that the tools collect that mandatory information. Where the policies say there are things you shouldn't do, there are things that you must do in connection, then the data management planning tool can constrain how some issues are dealt with. If your institution says sensitive data must always be stored on this particular infrastructure, then you don't allow researchers to make that decision. The plan requires them to use the infrastructure that the institution requires. Sometimes it's just through giving the right guidance to researchers on how to approach particular questions in a data management plan. Guidance that's provided by the institution that is nudging people towards saying, yeah, your policies require you to work in this way. And also through workflows and linkages with other tools such as current research information systems. So that moves on to the final question that you asked us to address on use cases for that technical capacity. I'm just going to skim over some of the things that our tool does at the moment and is going to be doing in future. So there's the ability to integrate external services and registries to bring in actionable IDs for things like repositories through working with re3 data, through, it looks like we're going to need some electricity here soon, by the way. With RDAs for metadata standards via the RDA catalog. That's another one of those groups that was set up at the very first RDA clean. We've been able to link that work together through identifiers for policies via platforms such as fair sharing and things like grant IDs, where there is at the moment no single way you can do that. And this at the moment is a mishmash of things that are specific to each national context. There's the ability to publish data management plans of our external services. Some people want to be able to do that and assign identifiers to them in the process. And I know that's an ability some of the other tools have as well. And to integrate via APIs and or other actionable identifiers in a range of tools elsewhere in the workflow. So one example we're working on at the moment is with a laboratory notebook tool called RSpace, for instance. And I think that's all I have to say at the moment, and hopefully we'll get some questions later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Let's move on to the next presentation by Thomas Miksha from TUVN, co-chair of the groups, both the Active Data Management Group and the DM Common Standard.
Okay, welcome again. This time I'm talking not as a chair, but as a product owner for the tool DAMAP for machine actionable DMPs. And I'm going to follow the similar structure of the presentation as Kevin did. So first there was a question about our community, and since we are a relatively new tool that was developed based on the outputs from RDA, we are still trying to establish our community. So far we are running 2 instances at TU Wien and TU Graz in Austria. This is mostly because the tool is made in Austria, but our goals are to conquer the rest of the world, of course. But we are having a slightly different philosophy than other tools because we are aiming at high automation, and to do so, we have to be closely integrated with the systems of a specific universities. So we don't want to provide an instance for everyone that everyone can log in and then you can get only the generic information. We want to pre-fill as many information as possible, and to have the tool at your premises, first you need to work with the experts in your institution to guide you of what would be the most common answers that the researchers can give, or what is the infrastructures or policies that apply. And this information will be added to the configuration of the tool. And then there is the part where the users are providing the answers that are specific to data. And based on that, we can pre-fill way more things than if it was just a generic instance available for everyone. For this reason, we have a small community right now, but hope to grow it. When it comes to the policies, we are following this rule of comply or complain. So whenever the researchers are exporting DMP, in this case, you can see it on the right-hand side, this is an editable document, a Word document. There is a section that describes relevant policies and guidelines that the researchers are subject to. And this is the part of, this part is specific for the institution. So here you can see these are all the policies and code of conduct and regulations that everyone who's a researcher at TU should follow. And based on our experience, researchers have no idea about them. And if you try to teach them before they start writing the DMP, they will not listen to you. But because it's in the document that is exported, it's added automatically, and then they read the document and have to make a decision, do I submit it with my name on it or not? Then they are more willing to check actually what's the content of it. And of course, if they don't want to add it, they can delete it or add other policies which they will follow as well. But this is to make them think, and this is to make them think at the moment when they are actually willing to listen. And this is, of course, specific per institution. And when you are getting an instance of DAMAP, this has to be customized to your setting, to your reality. And the researchers, don't have to do this work of trying to find out all the regulations themselves. But this is done by the data stewards or any department, any unit that is supporting your researchers with research data management. And the third part of the presentation is about the use cases that we're working with. And in this case, I want to show how we're trying to automate things again at TU. So the central part, of course, part is DAMAP. And we're using information from knowledge graphs on the reused data sets. So if somebody has published a data set, it has a DOI, you can import it easily into our data management plan. We are getting lots of information from our CRIS system about the project's name, affiliation, identifier of the university, all this administrative stuff that you would have to type in normally. We have a list of IT services that our university offers. Again, this is a list maintained manually by our stewards, but then the users can simply choose from a list of options that is applicable to them if they want to use the infrastructure from our university. And we also have a prototype of an integration of our data repository. There is a poster about it. You can see it in the poster sessions, but basically any data set uploaded to our data repository can easily be added with one click to a data management plan, and you can report it immediately for the DMP. But the more important and more interesting thing is what can happen in the future. We're currently working on some ideas for the automated assessment and feedback. So basically telling our researchers how good or how bad their DMPs and their practices are. And this brings me to the paper that we have published recently with colleagues from also this interest group about the toolbox for automated assessment, in which we are exploring ways of how can we get information from fair assessment tools or from knowledge graphs to help indicate the quality of actions to the researchers. And this will be also a part of a new project that we will be starting next year with colleagues from Argos Data Stewardship Wizards. It's called OS Trails, and they will be working on alignment of the DMP tools, but also on the automated assessment of DMPs. That's it from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tomasz. Next is Marek Suchanek from CTU in Prague to tell us a few things about new developments and how DSW works.
Thank you. Hello again. Now it's me again, but with orange hat this time. So how data stewardship wizard works, what are the communities, policies, etc. Maybe just for people that didn't heard about DSW, it's also a data management tool, but a little bit different, highly flexible, originated in Elixir. We host several instances for Elixir nodes, groups, and also projects where we are affiliated. And it's also open source tool, so there are many instances and we even don't know about some unless they give us some feedback. So I will put it into context how it works with machine actionable DMPs and explain how it works also in context of policies and communities. So we have in DSW something called document templates that serve to export something from the tool. And we have it for machine actionable DMPs since the hackathon in 2020, and both for JSON and RDF. But how it actually works in our open source tool, we have some questionnaire that is based on something called knowledge model structure for the questionnaire that each institution, group, community can adjust based on their needs, also integrate with their tools that they use locally, with their repositories, with their CRIS systems, whatever they want to actually fill the questionnaire. It doesn't have to be just manually typing, selecting options, but it can be also via integration, via API calls. Once they can, of course, do it gradually as questionnaire or DMP is a living document. And then when they are ready, they can basically publish a document, in this case, JSON RDF with machine actionable DMP template, but it can be from the same questionnaire with other templates, for example, Horizon Europe, Horizon 2020, Science Europe, etc. And what is also possible in DSW is to submit the document to some submission service, for example, to store it in some internal document system, to store it, for example, in Zenodo, etc. Again, this is highly customizable. API calls, people or groups can adjust it as they need. For the opposite side, for the import of DMPs, that's something that we developed later in 2020. And this feature is called project importers. Again, something highly customizable. People can, or groups can implement their own. We created first this machine actionable DMP importer. It's again open source. You can see it on GitHub. And it works that you have a document, for example, from some other tool that you used to use. And then you use the importer to get the answers into the questionnaire based on some knowledge model. You can then update, fill more, integrate with the services at your local institution, and then again export. And it can be again machine actionable DMP, or it can be some other document, for example, again PDF in Horizon Europe template. What we actually, okay, I see that this is broken somehow, but what we did figure out during the last plenary is that at the Chalmers University, they had a great idea for enhancing the interoperability. They built some API adapter, and that's something that inspired us to follow up if this works. And basically it works that DSW has its own API, which is mainly used by its UI, so its front and backend application. But also institutions, as I said, build their custom tools to pull the data to some warehouses, to analyze, to feed DSW with data from their other systems. So those are some custom tools. And what was developed was this MADMP proxy, which basically takes the internal representation of questionnaires, of replies in DSW and face it out as machine actionable DMPs in JSON. So this is idea that we want to also follow in the future. More what we want to do in the future is exchanging the information with other DMP tools. During the hackathon that I mentioned, we already did some prototype with DMP tool from US with Brian. We want to also enhance our knowledge models to cover all the entities and properties. As I said, institutions can create their own knowledge models, their own document templates, their own importers, but we from Elixir support some basic or general knowledge model that is made by Rob Hooft. And this covers most of the DMP common standard, but not everything. And we want to also collaborate on the extensions and other developments of the standard, of course. And we will see how the project will work also with the evaluations, as Tomáš mentioned. So that's it from me, and I will pass back to Ellie.
Thank you. Thank you, Marek. And yes, and lastly, I'm going to present to you as a product manager of Argos, the work we're doing in OpenAir, the infrastructure supporting open science in Europe, to create link and share fair and machine actionable DMPs. Let me see. So we support the OpenAir community, meaning OpenAir has members across different countries, like more than 40 at the moment. And we have institutions and librarians that work in different faculties. So we also cover like, the national aspects and some domain specific elements according to where our members are based on and what their needs are. This is how you see that the Argos, the Argos service and the OpenDMP software that supports Argos, so the open source software, is connected to the OpenAir graph and a huge knowledge graph of scholarly communication that OpenAir has built and maintains. You can see the different connections. Here is the picture of the DMP Common Standard model and mapped to the OpenAir graph. And we see here that some information is enriched through the graph to the DMP, and also Argos also supports information to enhance the graph with information that were not already there, such as with costs of RDM activities. One thing that we do have in Argos, and it's going to be launched very soon, is the creation of blueprints, because we see that the data management plan is becoming something more. It's not only about data anymore, it's also about software, it's also about other outputs. And we wanted to show it in a way that is combines all those different elements. So we built a blueprint functionality that combines different templates and can connect to different, let's say, external services to support the pre-filling, for example, of information from them. We have been adopted the RDA DMP Common Standard since the very beginning, like 2019, 2020, when it was launched. And for that, we have our templating system maps to the RDA properties and entities. We have a JSON and PDF exports that are also pushed to Zenodo. So Zenodo gets not only the PDF version, but also the RDA compatible JSON. And this goes into afterwards at the OpenAir graph, and it's discoverable through the OpenAir Export Discovery portal. We assign DMP IDs to the outputs through DataSite. And we also try to enhance the qualified references. So the links between DOIs and the relationship between them. For example, if a DMP record describes a specific data set and a publication linked to that, we keep the DOIs and we expose them in the DMP record, metadata record, with the links of these DOIs. We also, did I do something? We also, as like the previous tools mentioned, there are areas where they have introduced automations. We also do that. We want to support researchers to not, go around in different services and add the same information twice or three times. We automate the writing, searching, and publication of DMPs. The writing, we have a pre-filling functionality where you can connect to any source, external source, and get the information which we map to our own Argos model, and we allocate them in the specific area where they should be in the templates as answers. We have an API configuration system, and we can configure any API authorized or non-authorized to get access immediately to registries, repositories, and other outputs. And also we have a publishing mechanism that links to repositories to expose the DMP metadata. There are links, as I mentioned before, with qualified references and the files. The way we support the policies are we work with funders, of course, like Cistera, which is a consortium of European funders funding ICT projects, and FCT, which is the Portuguese national funder, to create their machine actionable template according to how, like the RDM policy that they have and what this policy includes. And also we support their DMPs being including as linked outputs in the project the project metadata record, of the graph. We also have links with services, like we have integrated with the first sharing policy registry. That was a collaboration in in a project about reproducibility. And you can now also select and infer information from their policy registry. Some use cases, we have a variety of use cases, not only institutional and national, but I chose here to show two that relate to research workflows and research object platforms like RoHub and RSpace, where we have where they have integrated our search API to search DMPs from their platform and then link it to data sets, to storage and other types of services and outputs that you can find in them. And I think that's it. We can now move on to the fun part where we interact with each other. Let me bring some microphones that I see here. There is one there and one over there. Please, any questions that you have for our presenters, feel free.
Hello, Robin Rice from University of Edinburgh. Just a general question for everyone. Very impressive functionality. I'm kind of aware DMPs are not always the most popular thing with researchers. What are the features that you're working on that you've gotten the most positive feedback from by researchers?
I don't have this. Yeah, okay, this mic is live. Yeah, we've certainly done testing with researchers as part of the development of DMP Online. You're right, Robin, these are not the most popular things, particularly when researchers see them as a chore rather than something to actually help them do the job. The original idea about this was it was meant to make research easier by encouraging you to plan at the right time. So enthusiasm might not be the right word, but we know that one thing researchers, two things they really appreciate. One is the ability of experts in their own institution to provide them with guidance on how to approach particular topics. And that topic can vary from researcher to researcher, but they really appreciate effectively somebody who's anticipated the question they had to ask and has used any one of these tools to provide guidance on how to approach it. And the other feature that we find is really popular is the ability to invite somebody to collaborate at any point. Given that, you know, we often talk about these things as if one person is filling that out, but research is nearly always a team effort. And that often means you need multiple people to be able to really think about how data is going to be managed. And anything that makes it easy for people to collaborate on either writing the data management plan or commenting on it in the same way that, you know, it's the same level of ease as being able to share a Google Doc with somebody and say, hey, edit this, leave some comments for me. We want that level of ease. And certainly that we've had positive feedback.
When it comes to DAMAP, since DMPs are still a relatively new thing to many researchers in Austria, I very often get the feedback that because they could click quickly through our tool and get the first export with pre-filled pages, they were able to quickly understand the complexity of the task. So very often they don't know if the DMP is supposed to be 3 pages or 30 pages. And by being able to see quickly a document, they could get a better idea of how much they need to add and what kind of complexity there is.
In my opinion, I think fortunately, most of the researchers in cancer mail sciences, they think data is important, but unfortunately, not many of them think DMP is important. But some of them have some good practice about that, to notice that DMP is helpful for their work. For example, in our institute, there's an experiment about microbiology. They want to do the experiment. They are required to create a DMP. And in our system, there are some specialists from data centers, which is how data management knowledge about how to manage this kind of data. They will help them to decide how, in which format they should organize their data. And it's a long time experiment, and the specialists will help them to tell them, you will produce this data in 3 different production, and you will organize them in that format, and how to store them, and how to manage them. The researchers think that is very helpful. And I think it's a good start for the researchers to feel the help about how to use the DMP.
Hi, Alexander Badl. Graz University of Technology. One question regarding these data sets and repositories with connection to DMPs. Is it possible to also have it the other way around, so that I intend to deploy something and that there's a registration in my preferred repository, and then also popping up over time, hey, you intended to deploy something, how's your status?
I have a feeling this is a question for the part where I was showing the integration. So we have a prototype which shows the one-way communication because it's much easier to implement, basically. We had some research done on the other direction, but the problem is that a lot of things can change during the DMP. So for example, the identifier, or you want to change, you will describe something in a DMP, create a place, upload the data in the repository, but then you will start editing things in the repository. Should these changes propagate back to the tool or not? So who has the ground truth, and how do we solve this kind of security issues? And this is a complex task. And since it was not a requirement as of now from many researchers, we keep it in the back of our heads. It would be really cool to do it, but we have to still narrow down what would be the permissible set of actions and when this could take place.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right, Tomasz. We understanding and trying to design in a very general way how this wants to work is a difficult problem. It's usually straightforward to think of a particular set of repositories, a particular group of researchers and how they want to work. And certainly in our experience, for instance, in the UK, there are some funders who operate their own repositories. So as part of constructing a data management plan, the researchers will work with data stewards within the repository to develop the data management plan. There, the linkage is easy to understand, and it's very easy to understand how to make these things work. But where those linkages aren't clear, where the repository staff aren't working with the researchers at the time that the plan is being created, I think as Thomas said, it's difficult to understand how the communication needs to work and what are the triggers for that communication happening.
If I may add, because we also integrated Argos with research platforms that are used during research, we had this, let's say, complexity of understanding when a particular collection of these data sets and the analysis and the code and everything were at a stable, what was the stable version of them in order for them to be published and then added in the DMP. So there's also, you need to find the balance and the right, let's say, time when the outputs are finalized. Can they be reverted then and do the finalization and work on them on a new version maybe? Yeah, these are all complex issues that we could tackle together. We have online. Okay.
So there is a question from Peter. Just read it. There was mention of including software and other outputs in the planning tools. I'm interested in which of the tools presented can incorporate information on outputs other than data. So maybe I will first answer it from DSW and then pass the microphone. So in DSW, you can create knowledge models basically for anything. It cannot be, it doesn't have to be even data management planning. It can be software management planning. It can be some assessment of employees. It doesn't matter. So in this way, it can be done for basically anything. But of course, you can just extend the data management planning knowledge model to add more of these different outputs of research.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting observation there. I mean, it's one thing of what can our tools do, but quite separately, where I think there still needs to be more work done, I know others are doing it, is thinking how much, what do you actually want to do with a tool like this if we're talking about software? Because the life cycle of software in research is quite different from the life cycle of data in many cases. Those of you who have been involved with RDA for some years may remember that it was at the Barcelona plenary where we first established the working group that set up the common DMP standard. That was in a room we were trying to establish what working groups do we need to address particular tasks to do with data management planning. One of them was a group that was intended to develop concepts for how we translate these ideas to the management of software. And that group never really got established, but I think some of the people involved in it are at work in some of the other RDA groups that are dealing with issues to do with software. And I think one of the problems is that we've not, those two things have gone off, diverged, they've gone in separate directions, and we need to join them back up, because I think the tools may be capable of dealing with it, but we're not necessarily helping to answer the right questions about the management of software research.
So just to answer the question, Argos also supports this through blueprints. Short question, because we need to also move to the breakout session. Any other question?
I'm interested, you mentioned for DMP Online, Kevin, that you have plans for DMPs to be automatically published. Can you explain a bit more? Is that like to a repository like Zenodo? Is that through the API, an export of Any format, a PDF?
It's the idea is to support what. So some people do want to put them into Zenodo, and indeed that's the kind of service you already provide through Argos, I believe, isn't it? For instance, so that's certainly one route. I mean, it's possible to publish them simply within the tool itself, and I know other tools offer similar things, but it's what we're trying to support is whatever it is that researchers find most useful, given that I'm conflicted a bit. We like to think of these plans as being something active, meaning they're changing all the time, which goes against the idea of freezing a version of it and publishing it and saying, you know, there is a truth. That's really a snapshot of what my plan looked like at a particular point in time. But if it's useful for people to have those snapshots, then yes, we want to support it.
I'm afraid I need to cut this Q&A here and then move on to the next part. Here you can see 4 different areas that DMPs cover, like in terms of technical specifications, in terms of policy, and how they relate to policies, as we heard about in the Lightning Talk presentations, regional and national aspects, and domain-specific elements. So we would like you to assume a role, maybe the role that you have already, or maybe not. We have 4 different roles: funders, institutions, data stewards and librarians. This is one. And what else do we have? Researchers. So assume a role and then gather together to talk about those 4 main areas and how you see them evolve, what the changes, the very urgent changes you think we need, and we will come back to report like at the end. There, funders over there, data stewards, and librarians here. The other half of this middle section will be researchers, and here is institutions. You have 15 minutes just to discuss. Choose the area, choose the stakeholder, and just discuss about. Okay, hope you had intensive and productive discussions as we tried to. I mean, we did have for sure. The time could have been extended, but this is a note to ourselves to do it better next time. Shall we have like one representative from each group? I will represent the institutions. Can we have on stage representatives from funders, from researchers, and from data stewards and librarians, please? Like 2 minutes to report back about our discussions and share them with everyone.
So I'm Peter McCallum from Elixir. I'm not really a funder at all, but I pretended and snuck into the funders session. We did have real funders there. We had the Wellcome Trust, for example, big funders. And we talked about a couple of questions. One is the variety of different tools that are available. How should funders interact with the different tools? Should funders be picking their own tool? And I think we had a conversation there and decided that really it's the institutional users who are the tool selectors, and that the funders consume the plans themselves. So I think that interchangeable plan becomes very, very important. And then we had a conversation about the machine actionable plans themselves. At what stage do the funders actually start to consume those? And this is a bit more challenging. Many of the funders are still only just adopting a PDF data management plan. They're probably quite a long way away from actually being able to use the machine actionable, machine readable versions. So I think there's a long way to go if we're looking forward to 2030. The point at which the funders can consume a machine readable data management plan is probably something we have to do quite a lot of work on. It would be useful to them, obviously, give them a lot more data, but I think that's one of the challenges. We also talked a little bit about the push versus the pull, and we do see that the report that you get at the end, a well-written machine readable report with DOIs for data, could be used by the funders to help them credit data as an output as well as papers, and so that's seen as kind of beneficial. We all know that the funders maybe don't credit our data outputs as well as our journal publications. So I think this would be helpful from the funder point. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this overview. Anyone from data stewards and librarians? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Annemarie van Boekel from the Hanse University of Applied Sciences. We just had a discussion mostly focused on support. And we really quickly kind of ran into the challenges that we run into, which are mostly centered around awareness and a sense of urgency within the researchers, where we really want to facilitate and support the use of the FAIR principles in data management. But for instance, even writing a data management plan is often seen more as a chore than as something important. Yeah, this is something that we all found we run into, but we do really want to support and facilitate these things. So we really often try to make trainings, try to do research into how far the awareness actually is surrounding writing a DMP, but also proper data management, executing your DMP, things like this. So yeah, as a researcher, if you do run into any questions or troubles, please do find your support staff, your research support staff, or your librarians, your data stewards. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Someone representing researchers?
So there are two persons, only two persons, including me and Cyrus. So we have as a background of our research fields, such as physics. We have discussed about how to manage the big data obtained from some institutions or some facilities, and how to support as a provider of research data infrastructure in my stand is to how to support researchers to add metadata and also advise DMPs. So as the first questions that so how to manage big data is that so we have we obtain many and much volume of big data obtained in our research data projects. And in such cases, sometimes it is difficult for us to distinguish and manage the data because there are so many and much volumes. So we should one of the solutions for managing and distinguishment of research data, such a big data, is to add metadata for appropriate metadata for these data. However, in the stance of the provider of research data infrastructure, such as our RDCs, we should support the metadata researchers to add metadata to big data as well as small data. However, we have not yet implemented to add metadata to all of the scientific fields because it depends. The schemas and the definition of metadata depends on scientific fields such as biological and physics. So, in our stance of provider of research data infrastructure, we should think that the definition of structures and schema of metadata is up to the scientific communities, and we can provide some action that enable the researchers to import their metadata from their research data to our infrastructures. Okay, so these are the discussion results of our two persons.
Thank you. And lastly, about the institutions, we had a discussion that highlighted the need for incentives for institutions to motivate researchers. We saw that making a DMP sharing obligatory works, but still, how do we engage with researchers? And we had someone from the Czech Academy of Sciences that provided like a use case with a small, let's say, institutions, only 200 researchers, saying that they have like a minimum template that they use, and they also try to get the feedback of the researchers. So this is like how they started approaching the DMP writing, although it's obligatory. They provide guidance and they have minimum, let's say, requirements from the researchers, and they appreciate the effort that they see being provided to the document. Yeah, we also saw that this is not the case for larger institutions who are not very aware of the different services that are used in the different departments and faculties, and there is like a variation there. And a diversity in terms of how DMPs, how data management planning takes place in different organizations because of their size. We talked about plan for cost recovery, so planning in advance. This needs to be highlighted as well in the coming years. also when we talk about sensitive data, large data, and sharing of data, which can be costly. Reproducibility was also mentioned. How do we incorporate, like what the reproducibility means in different domains? How do we support reproducibility through management plan, data management plans? And I think that's it. Also, the idea of living documents should be put forward, and we should also find ways to support it more. Yeah, thank you. And lastly, if you want to get involved in our group, please add your name in the collaborative notes. This is the QR code for collaborative notes, and we expect to have like different task forces, let's say, or working groups to work based on the stakeholder category and the different needs that each stakeholder has. For example, funders, as you had this discussion, institutions, researchers, and research support staff. So if you want to be more engaged and help us tackle some of these issues as a community, please let us know by adding your name and email there. And thank you very much to everyone and to my co-chairs. And talk to you in the coffee, in the break.